Hey, it's Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com, and I want to talk about the case of the retained E's. It's usually lower E's, sometimes it's upper. These are retained baby deciduous 2-year-old molars. I call these E's, but some of you might call these like A, J, K, and T, depending on what country you're in and what type of dentist you are. But most commonly, they are called E's. So, in any case, these teeth, or whatever you want to call them, these baby teeth, sometimes people don't have a permanent one underneath them. It's actually a pretty high rate and it runs in families. It definitely runs in our family. My mom has two of them and she still has one of them. One of them she had to get pulled and it fell out and she had to get a bridge. But if you take really good care of them, you can have them for a lifetime. And my mom's almost 80, so they will hang out if you take care of them. You have to be very cautious what you do with them, the bite, the orthodontics, and sometimes they don't last. So let's talk about situations where we keep them, situations where we pull them. And I have a lot of content on this already. So you can go into my YouTube channel. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. Go into my YouTube channel, Straightsmile Solutions. It probably is in the phase 1 playlist, most of these. But you can look up retained E's as a keyword, or just retained or E, letter E. It should come up. But keep in mind that the benefit of keeping these is that they will, assuming they're not ankylosed, they will keep the bone. As soon as you pull them, the bone's going to start going down, 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 which is going to cause periodontal defects. And if you don't have orthodontics and or retention at the same time, these teeth will start tipping over and weird things will happen. So you have to have a plan. As soon as you pull them, you better have something to go in there, be it a bridge, an implant, or something, at least a retainer or something. To go in there. You can't just pull and have nothing because bad things will start happening almost immediately if you do. I don't always want to pull them just for orthodontics either, because if I pull them, like I said, we're going to have to manage the space throughout treatment and we're going to have to put something in as soon as treatment's done. Sometimes we do need to, I mean, especially in a very big crowding case. Maybe we need to. And the other issue with them is that it causes a massive Bolton because this tooth is bigger than the predecessor, the one that comes after it, the premolar. So premolar is about 7.5, maybe 7 to 8 millimeters, somewhere in there. This sucker is more like 10, 10 and a half, 11. So you're talking about somewhere between a 2 and 3 millimeter space differential, sometimes 1.5, but on each side. So that's a total of like 5 millimeters of Bolton sometimes, either 3, 1.5 plus 1.5, or 4, 2 plus 2, or 5, 2.5 plus 2.5. That means that you have a mandibular Bolton of 3 to 5 millimeters automatically on top of anything else that you might already have, which causes, teeth are meant to fit together like cogs on a wheel. For those of you who watched my previous video about no one dying over a little class 2, well, you leave these in, you're going to be a little class 3. So you're not going to be a little class 2 unless you already started very class 2. And then this might be a benefit. So it really just depends on the occlusion of the patient. I can't tell you off the top if you should pull or not because it depends on if they're an asset or not. Sometimes they're an asset and you're like, well, thank goodness this patient was a little class 2 anyway, so this just fixed my problem because it added 3 millimeters of lower Bolton. Hallelujah. This is great. But let's say, for example, patient was class 1 and has upper peg laterals, which is already a mandibular Bolton to begin with, or a maxillary deficiency, aka a mandibular Bolton. Well, now we have a 7 millimeter Bolton. Well, that's a nightmare. So that's not going to work. So you guys get what I mean. So, but let's say in the case where the roots are already stumpy anyway. Sometimes we have like really nice roots and heck no, we're not pulling that. But let's say we have stumpy roots. Like this is probably not lasting. Like if we even put a force on this sucker with ortho, it's probably going to fall out. Well, sometimes we don't have a choice, especially in a crowding case where we're going to have to upright the curve of Wilson and upright the curve of Spee. I can't do that without getting on this tooth, So yeah, it's going to accelerate the loss. Sorry, that's just how it is. Unless you go in there, just drill the heck out of it. Sometimes we need to go in here if we know we need IPR or there is a mandibular Bolton and we have a problem, we got to go in there and create IPR. Well, I'd rather create IPR on this tooth because it's not going to make it anyway. So if I'm going to chop a tooth, I'd rather chop an unhealthy tooth than chop a healthy tooth because, right? Why chop the healthy teeth and take away tooth structure when these are going to fall out anyways? And now we have extra tooth structure that we have to deal with. So why not just like zing, zing? I mean, I say numb it up, take a burr, just go boom, boom, go to town. Create some space and we'll just use that space and that just makes the perfect space for an implant later. And then we can just make everything interdigitate just like it's meant to be. That's just my thought. So lots of things you need to think about. Of course, I wouldn't, braces is not my choice in this case because I mean, it's going to be heavy, heavy force and you're probably going to have to bond that tooth. Sometimes we can bypass it if the arch is wide enough already. But if it's not, well, you know, we've got leveling or something to do, well, then we can't bypass it, right? So, of course, aligners are often a little more gentle, a little more forgiving. Keeping your forces slow and low is always better. You can always use an expander and just run it off the molar. I mean, for a lower, just remember all that's doing is rolling out the curve of speed, but at least you're not directly putting a force on this guy. It's going to roll out the molars, but maybe not this, but we don't care that much. So each case, and it comes down to each case is unique and you have to really think about each case. So I recommend taking these cases and running these by an orthodontist before you make a decision. All right, thanks so much. And I'm happy to help you with your cases. If you ever want help, check out straightsmilesolutions.com. Thank you.